Hello, everybody. Freelance teacher coming at you again. I'm Doug Marola, talking with you again from the secret studio, soundproof, for the legions of people who've been asking for more opinions. Well, here you go. There are really only two things that I've been itching to talk to you guys about, because it really shows kind of how things are working in the world today, in the United States anyway. Really, that's the best way to put it. It's these two little things, but they really have caused a stir, and they really show you the nature of people. I talk in class a lot about the human condition, or I talk about human nature, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about in literature regards these things. How do people react? What motivates them? Why do they do the things that they do? Why have they written the stories that they've written throughout the ages? What are these people telling you from the grave repeatedly that you're not listening to? And some of the events, however silly they may be, begin to explain the human condition. And one of them is the Kanye West controversy, if you want to call it that. Kanye West tweeted out two things. One of them was that he likes the way Candace Owens thinks. Now, who's Candace Owens? I've been aware of Owens for a while. She was on the Rubin Report. She hit the libertarian radar and also kind of like the Republican radar, because she was a young black woman who liked Donald Trump and is a Republican. So she has a YouTube channel, Red Pill Black, and I've seen a bunch of her stuff. So I wouldn't think that Kanye West would know who she was, but he tweets out he likes the way that she thinks. So Owens really doesn't go overboard. She's kind of a middle of the road conservative, standard stuff. She says you don't have to always vote Democrat. She says that black people are on the Democratic Party's plantation. Stuff like you should get married before you have kids. And she says heretical thoughts like racism in the United States isn't as bad as they say it is, and people just are not victims and they shouldn't see themselves as such. That's not earth-shaking stuff. Tom Sowell's been writing and talking about this for 50 years. Walter Williams, Larry Elder, S.B. Fuller. Hell, Zora Neale Hurston was doing this in the World War II, 1950s era. Even some of the other black women writers have very consciously said, do not be a victim. Do not constantly feel that you have to identify as oppressed, because then your identity can't exist without your oppressor. Maya Angelou wrote stuff like this with that message. Toni Morrison, without a doubt. She has a quote that begins where she starts talking about how racism is a distraction. So Owens isn't anything, out there. And the reaction to the Kanye tweet was incredible. People went after Candace Owens big time. They went after her. Of course, they went after her as a person, not her views necessarily. And then the next tweet that he said was, it's going to go down in history as Kanye West tweeted, slavery was a choice. So it seemed to me that he was talking about mental slavery, that is a choice, and it was a choice, and people can decide to be mental slaves or not. Again, this is nothing earth-shaking. Bob Marley was singing about mental slavery. My mom had one of the earliest CDs we had was Bob Marley singing about mental slavery and how it's problematic. And he said it in various different ways, all very eloquent, of course. Right? Don't we all wish we could create that kind of music? But I saw it. I read it as that. I'm on Twitter. I saw the tweet, and it seemed pretty ridiculous that he would think that people could say no to chains, and if they were forced at the point of a weapon. It wasn't. It just didn't ring that way. So that it was mental slavery seemed pretty obvious to me. Well, guess what? the crowd, the acceptable opinion crowd, the New York Times reading progressive liberal, predominantly white contingent went crazy. I mean, it was, I think Kanye West, the story I heard was that he lost 9 million followers right after that tweet. And people just went berserk. And he was talking about, and continued to talk about after that, thinking for yourself. And the national reaction, I mean, national press, TV shows, Twitter went berserk. Really, really huge reaction. The reason why I think it's important for you to know this and to talk about it and to watch what's happening is because there's also a story from a few years ago. The Secretary of State at the time, Hillary Clinton, deposed, killed, murdered the head of Libya, Gaddafi, and this was during the Obama administration. And Libya has since become a place that has open-air slave markets. I'm not talking about anything metaphorical or proverbial. I'm not using a turn of phrase. These are slave markets, people being sold for money. The reaction to that has been minimal. Let's just put it that way. It was a non-story. You had a couple of places pick it up in the libertarian world. Lou Rockwell had the story pretty early. Zero Hedge, I think, had it, although don't quote me on that. It was out there. I remember thinking, that's just crazy. What do you mean? People on a stage being sold for dollars? And the answer is yes. Open-air slave market. It's such a wretched story that it actually got out for a while. And the reaction was not condemnation and nationwide wringing of hands and screaming. Now, these are people being sold. This is slavery. It's 2018. You'd think that people would go berserk. But no. That's a story that you can talk about, and, you know, people shake their heads. Oh, it's so bad. It's totally unfortunate. Oh, OMG. But it doesn't cause a ruckus. Twitter doesn't go berserk. It's just, I don't know, just a story. Why is that? Why doesn't the national press galvanize itself, the mainstream corporate media go bananas? This is real slavery, right? Remember, these are the people who tell us that the institutional racism of slavery and the culture of slavery and the culture of oppression from pre-1865 in the United States is still something that is real and needs to be discussed. I happen to disagree with that. I mean, history is wonderful and interesting and complex. But people today, right, on 3rd and 3rd in Mount Vernon, or 149th and 3rd Avenue in the Bronx, or 125th Street and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard in Harlem, you know, I've been to all of those places, and it sure doesn't seem to have echoes of plantation-era Alabama. I've been there, and I'm in Mount Vernon every day. You can come join me, and we can talk about it if you want. But the press talks about this stuff with legitimacy and bowed heads and solemn voices. And now you have open-air slave markets in Libya, and you don't have any galvanization at all. Weird. Right? I'm the crazy one, yet here's what I see, right? But I'm crazy and a conspiracy theorist for wondering about the corporate media working in tandem. That's what I get. The other thing is this this comment that Donald Trump made about MS-13, the Mara Salvatrucha gang from South America. He was talking about them, and he referred to them as animals. Now, MS-13 is one of the wretched, most violent killing gangs around. I married into a Hispanic family. MS-13 is not news to me. And these people are violent. They destroy neighborhoods. They destroy lives and people. Feral and psychopathic is probably the best way to describe some of these folks. And not only that, you don't need to take my word for it. Go on, I don't know, is it History Channel? Discovery Channel? They'll have like worst federal prison, right? Or MS-13 in jail, and they've got guys with facial tattoos, and they're in for 12 life sentences, and they're really, really rough, violent killers. So this is TV networks, they're showing you this. Donald Trump refers to them as animals. Now, I kid you not, because I saw this on Facebook. There was a hue and cry, just wringing of hands and screaming that Donald Trump had called undocumented immigrants animals. Now, Donald Trump is many things, but for him to brazenly just blurt out that undocumented immigrants are animals, that's a little tough to take. You should have an internal compass or some kind of antenna to be like, well, wait a minute. Hold on a minute. This guy is a master of the media. He's got the left is a really bad word. He's got the progressives going bananas every day. The guy refuses to apologize. He's giving you a case study in public relations and propaganda. He gets $80 bazillion of free press because CNN and the rest of the group, they can't help but put him on and attack the guy. He gets more free press than anyone in the history of the human race. He's giving a clinic in public relations just by getting his name out there. So for him to be stupid enough to say undocumented immigrants are animals, that should have caught your ear wrong. That should have gotten you a little bit suspicious, like, wait a minute. So, I've got friends on Facebook who I think are just politically lost. They're naive or I don't know if they're being intentionally ignorant, and they repost a story from CNN or MSNBC or Occupy Democrats or one of these ridiculous Facebook pages on how Donald Trump called undocumented immigrants, and they use that word all the time. They don't say illegal, undocumented immigrants as animals. Well, that doesn't seem right. I didn't have time to look it up now at the time. So during the day, I'm like, all I did was go to Google and type in undocumented immigrants, Trump, animals, full quote. And sure enough, it is the whole thing. You can read or listen, excuse me, to the entire thing where he talks about and refers to MS-13 as animals. Now, I don't know what's wrong with that. You have then people who are so ideological. Now we're talking about secular people, but this is religious. It has now reached religion. You have people defending MS-13 and basically saying, not all gang members are bad, right? Not all these people are terrible. Donald Trump is a bad guy for saying they're animals. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. None of these people have any skin in the game and is going to live nowhere near MS-13. Go to the Long Island areas where they are. Why don't you go tell them how great they are? See what happens to you. The wealthy, comfortable lives in the press, mostly in Manhattan or Los Angeles, and they're now defending their position simply because they can't say, yeah, we did a misquote. We quoted this thing wrong. It has to be, I can't admit that I quoted it wrong or that the press quoted it wrong. So I'm going to now double down and say, bow to the gods of political correctness and anti-Trumpism and try to defend the indefensible. This is religious thinking. These are secular people again, but they are religious in their ideology. And I want you to think about that when you wonder why your reason and evidence and facts don't work. Because you're not dealing with people who are dealing with reason, evidence, and facts. They're coming up with, Donald Trump's a bad guy. He called undocumented immigrants animals. And then when you find out that that's not what he said, they double down and say it was wrong anyway. That's weird. Now, the AP has posted a retraction. Good for them. But you gotta keep your ear to the ground, people. These are fanatics, and they are your rulers right now.